All right, well, hey, welcome to Code Freedom. This is your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 38. And I'm really excited today because I have my good friends, Ken and Dee Lindsey, and they have been great friends of ours for a long time, for my wife and I. And I'm so glad to share them with you all because they are such pillars in the community, especially as it relates to marriage and so many other things. But today we're going to talk about relationships and marriage. So, hey, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And so, I'd love to know, how did you guys meet? Because I know you've been married for over 23 years and would love to just know, how did y'all meet?
Okay, well, I'm gonna start because we have two different stories, but we actually met in 1993 at a college party. We actually met on the dance floor.
Yes, and she was mesmerized by my dance move, and I'm like, I saw somebody checking me out, and but looking back, I truly believe that she was like a representation of Jesus coming, really helping me. So ever since then, my life has been nothing but the best.
Yeah, I can say the same thing. My wife actually has a similar situation where she has a different story and I have a different story. She says I stalked her on Facebook. I don't know about that, but one day we'll tell that story.
Yes, love
But
to hear it.
so I mean, you guys being marriage counselors and helping couples break the divorce cycles, what would you say drew you in that direction of having a heart and a passion to help married couples?
Okay. Well, as mentioned, Ken and I, we've been married for 23 years. And unfortunately, at the beginning, we didn't have the resources. We didn't have a lot of support and understanding of what the marriage relationship was about. So, unfortunately, I would say probably the first 10 to 12 years, we really had a hard time. We kind of fumbled through life because we just didn't know.
Hmm. Yeah, and more so for me is that the foundation of it is like Dee said, that we really wanted to give couples a great opportunity to really build a marriage. We didn't know what it meant, and Dee had an idea, and I had an idea. I think we share our experiences, we share what helped us to succeed, and even our failures. We give them the whole picture of it, because here's the thing: we get excited up to the married day, the pomp and the pageantry. But no one, I think more so in society now, like you mentioned, we've given it out. That seed is being sown whole. It takes work. You have two different people, and we want to bring that understanding so they are aware
Mhm.
of the work. And once you realize that it does take work, your marriage will be so much better. So we're bent towards that to make sure everybody have a clear understanding of what it takes so it can last.
It's so important that you said that because I think some people think it's supposed to just work automatically. Like it's
I
just
did.
supposed to be like osmosis, like everybody just comes together and it's all good. But you're right, it does take work.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first got married, we went to a marriage conference. We were blessed to do that our second year, and we learned something very key about boundaries. And
Mhm.
I think that has really carried us because those nuggets that we learned, it really helped us and shaped our marriage big time. So you guys teach those types of things to couples and stuff. And so let me just say this: when how the world is today, where marriage is kind of taken for granted, it's like you get in, get out. It's not really a big deal, or the divorce rate keeps going up at alarming rates and things like that. Why would you say that marriage is important?
Um, Marriage is important because if you look at some of the stats, one is that helped us. Your kids are healthier. The opportunity to succeed is greater, and also with a healthy marriage, you have a healthy family unit,
Mhm.
and then with a healthy family unit, you have a healthy community. And once again, if you put in the work to have a foundation and a representation of something good, you are able to change society and the culture around you. So it's very important, especially in society now. Right now, we are in a season to where anything is okay.
Mhm.
You can choose whatever you want, but from a faith perspective, that we are bent more towards in creating what God wants in the earth. And so it's important for as a faith perspective, but it's more important that you want everybody to be more successful. And it is proven that having that marriage relationship, a healthy marriage relationship, fosters that opportunity more.
Yeah, and it's so important what you just said about how God designed it, because if we don't do it by God's design, then it automatically is gonna fail.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the most important. It really is the important thing that we need to
Yes.
be mindful of. But I was just doing a little research, and I saw just a couple stats that I wanted to share with you guys concerning that. And it said that in terms of marriage and health, it said on average, husbands and wives are healthier, happier, and they enjoy longer lives than those who are not married. So that basically means if you're married, you'll live longer. Now, we're not here saying that just because you're married, your whole life is going to be peachy king.
Absolutely.
And we're not
Yes.
saying that you're in a bad situation if you're not married, but these are just some things to kind of be mindful of,
Hmm.
as you move through your life, as you're looking for freedom. It also said that in terms of marriage and wealth, married couples build more wealth on average than singles, right? Now, this is really important to me because we're talking about legacy now. When it talks about marriage and children, it said that children raised by their own married mother and father are less likely to be poor or to experience persistent economic insecurity. They're more likely to stay in school, have fewer behavioral and attendance problems, and they'll typically earn a 4-year college degree.
Wow.
Now, you guys know for me, I have different thought processes on schooling. however, however, I love the fact that it just talks about that as a whole. You just have a better family unit from the children, from the wealth, from the health, and everything else. It just sounds to me like marriage really it's a big deal, right?
Yes. I'm a living stat of what you just said. My mom and dad divorced, and I have a 2-year degree. Dee was brought up in the house where her mom and dad was there. Her and her sister both has a 4-year degree. Our kids has a 4-year degree. And based on how you look at education, for me, education was a part of, okay, look, if you don't have an understanding of what you want, at least, you know, grab an education towards what you believe that you want to be in. But either way, they are going to be way more successful. So that to me, that example is it's true. And I think also too, in a marriage, there are disciplines and challenges that you really have to work on. So that builds your skill set a little different. Now, if you choose not to work on those things, guess what? Then though that stat may not be in your favor, but when you choose to work on it, create that environment, and you mentioned legacy, your vision is a little bit different, and you're going to do things that are different. So,
Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna add too, being, for Ken and I married, some days, I'm tired, I'm weary, or I need some type of encouragement. So when you have a life partner, they're there
that's
to, I
good.
don't want to
Yeah.
say pick up the slack, but they're
Yeah.
there to help motivate you, to help push you. And, so, those that are in single homes, that person don't have nobody there to motivate them to keep
In more
pushing,
cases. Yeah.
pushing them. So we believe marriage is important because you have a partner that that can go on this journey with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the woman is the comes from the rib, and,
Hmm.
and so that means that something is missing from the men, right? And so when you
Yeah, that's
put
good.
together, you're whole, and I can totally relate to that because my wife has my blind spots. She sees things
Yes.
that I don't see sometimes. And in fact, like I'm always bouncing things off of her because I want to make sure that I'm not missing something, and she always catches something that I miss. And so I love that because we make each other stronger,
Yes,
right?
we
Absolutely.
complete each
Absolutely.
other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's healthy because as you get stronger, your kids get stronger, and then they get to grow up and kind of mimic that same process.
Yes.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So, well, why do you think so many marriages fail?
Mm.
Mm, um, I think the one thing that comes to mind for me is not really understanding what it takes to have a successful marriage. Some people just don't know if they were not brought up in an environment where they saw healthy marriages. Also, being committed. You know, Ken and I, you know, as I mentioned earlier, those first 10 to 12 years were hard, you know, but because we were committed to our vows and we were committed to the relationship and of course our faith in God, that's what got us through. And a lot of people, they give up too quickly.
Yeah, that's so true. People give up quickly on everything, but they seem to really do it in the terms of relationships. And there's no commitment. Like back in the day, it was like you would stay with somebody even through all the challenges and as hard as it was, and people had no idea how bad it was, but they just stayed together through it all. And now the first challenge and people are ready to go.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I think with a vision and with a hope, you know, Dee and I hoped. We was like, we know there's more. And that, I guess that kept us in the commitment phase. And now we are really living in the fruit from those commitments, because we could have quit every year the first 12 years of our marriage. We really could have just walked away, because to us at that time it really was a mountain. And so right now it's like, okay, we feel the blessing. You know, we like, oh man, okay, this is what it takes to be committed. And now we understand more. So for one, the lack of a vision, not really knowing what it takes to have a functioning relationship. We can't even talk about healthy relationship, just the function to get to the health adds to that as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, you guys have helped a lot of people over the years in terms of, you know, just counseling and things like that. And I'm just, you know, I wonder what had been one of the common threads that has helped couples to kind of get through to be successful.
Yeah. I think the main thing for us is having them to get to a focal point. If you have a choice, do you want to be happy or do you want to fuss and be aggravated? And so having them to understand how to choose happiness or choose peace in their home, and then you will automatically eliminate those things that disrupts that. So I think that's the main fabric that we try to get people in the foundation of having couples to move forward.
Yeah, and Ken actually helped me with this, because I used to actually say marriage is hard, it's difficult, and he changed my mindset one day when he said marriage is not difficult, it's just different. You know, so we need to just look at things differently, and I think sometimes we don't take the time to try to understand from the other person's perspective. You know, you grew up one way thinking, you know, things were right, but the other person is the same way. They think they're right is right. So trying to mesh the two together and taking the time to understand the other person's perspective, you know, so many marriages could be saved if they just take the time to say, you know what, maybe they do know what they're talking about.
Grace to grow.
In the last episode, we literally just talked about paradigms and how we grow up a certain way and we don't even know why we do things that we do just because of what we saw. And then it's interesting because you grew up a certain way, you saw things a certain way, the other person grew up a certain way, they saw things a certain way, and together you see things differently. And that can happen like how you handle your kids, how you eat, you know, how you handle your finances. I know you guys are big on managing your finances well and things like that. All those are challenges. I mean, we're talking like multiple different areas that have to come together and become one. That can be very challenging. I mean, that's challenging even for businesses to have a merger, let alone couples to merge their whole lives and be one like that. So it's awesome that you help people that way.
Yeah, Ken always say, you know, we used to always say, oh, it's 50-50. No, it's 100-100. We got to work together on this thing.
Yeah.
That's good. That's real good. Wow. Well, you know, we talk about breaking codes to freedom on this podcast, and I believe in every area that's necessary. not just in one area, because if you have, I know people who make a ton of money, but their marriages are horrible and it affects every area of their life because of that. So you have to have all of them. It's like a wheel. And if you have the spokes on the wheel, and if one of those spokes is off, the whole wheel is not going to operate right.
No.
And so this is a big topic that we want to talk more about in the future. But how would you say that? What are 2 or 3 codes that you would say in terms of marriage and relationships that you would say would help people to be more free in their marriage? Because some people are actually living in bondage in their marriage because they have all these challenges and they refuse to work them out. They refuse to maybe get counseling, or they refuse to get some help. And so they just kind of live miserably for years when they could live free if they just were able to seek out people like you are. So what are a couple of things you guys would share to that?
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of what you use, the spokes. So if you got a wheel and it has the spokes in it, so what if you have a bad wheel with a ton of bad spokes? So when you pull one of them, when you start eliminating the things that is not helpful, I think having a healthy mindset, we talk about the emotion intelligence. If you have a healthy mindset, the code to having a healthy marriage is, okay, let's eliminate the things that does not make us happy. Everything is a choice. Dee and I just got through teaching a marriage builders class and blew up and had a big argument. And we was like, wait a minute. And at that moment, we realized it was a choice for me to even respond to her in a negative manner. And once we made a choice, she said it's not important. And I said it's disrupting the peace. So one of the code to freedom is making sure you eliminate the things that disrupt your peace and does not help foster a healthy marriage. And you want to add something else?
One for me is a code is breaking silence. A lot of people in marriages, they don't feel comfortable sharing their true feelings out of fear of rejection or judgment. And so they don't have that safe place. So we got to be able to foster a safe environment so that the other person can be able to freely share. I think, like you said, people stay in bondage because they're not being their true self or feel like they can't, you know, be themselves in the marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the final one is, of course, a grace to grow. Giving the other person, Dee excelled in a lot of things. She had both of her parents that really poured into her. So she had a ton of information, a ton of successful areas. And so for me, you know what, that could be challenging for her, that to a person that has not had success in their strengths. So when we are strong in one area and the other person is not there, it's not a time for us to really, be down on them. It's saying, okay, look, they're not there. So I'm going to help them get there. So giving the other person grace to grow in the areas that they are not doing well in is also, I think, is another code to freedom in your relationship.
Oh, those are all so good. And as you guys were talking, I was just thinking, because it's kind of like the opposite in my relationship, because I had both of my parents growing up. Now they're divorced now, but because of that, I was able to get a 4-year degree. Well, I take that back. My wife has a 4-year degree as well, but I had certain things growing up because of having both parents that maybe she didn't have. And I want to speak on one thing that you said, just like a vulnerability moment, is you talked about breaking silence and stuff like that. I think that's important, because one of my challenges, and guys may be able to relate to this, is that when my wife has a challenge with something, and when she shares it with me, it seems like a criticism to me, right? And so we end up reacting instead of responding. And one thing that I've learned, I'm still working on, and I just want to share this because I think it can help a lot of couples, is especially the guys, because I've heard this to be a pattern, is that you can disagree, but still validate their feelings.
That's
That's
good.
very hard to do, right? Very hard to do, meaning that you can show empathy for what they're feeling and what they're going through, even if you disagree with the statement that they made. And that's hard, right? But it's important, because if you don't, then they'll never want to share their feelings.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Down, because every time they share their feelings, you feel attacked. So now they'll stop sharing their feelings to help you not feel attacked. And now they fester up all these feelings and stuff. It's just a lot of stuff that we could talk about when we come to relationships and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys talked about making a choice. You know, we all have a choice. A choice is a voluntary act of doing that which is preferred. We all have a choice, but are we going to actually make a decision to choose something, or we just let things happen? You also talked about peace, right? I'm big on peace. I took a personality test, and it talks about how, well, my personality is always to seek peace above everything. And sometimes that could be a bad thing, because if you seek peace too much, then you end up kind of like letting things go that you probably shouldn't, right? So there's just a lot of things that we could talk about on all of those levels, but those are great codes when it comes to freedom and marriage.
Absolutely.
So important. It takes work, like everything else. I mean, you can't just expect to get muscles without going to the gym.
Right.
You can't just expect to have a bunch of money in your account without having investments and things. And same thing in marriage. We invest in so many other things, and oftentimes we never invest in marriage. You know.
Absolutely.
So I just
Absolutely.
think this is such an important episode, and I hope everybody sees it and listens to it and takes value and just shares with other people. But I definitely going to have you guys on again, because you guys are such so valuable in this area, and we love to hear more from you guys.
Thank you. Hey, I just want to share, man, you're doing a phenomenal job hosting this. I love your energy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so I want more people to be able to connect with you guys. But before we do that, you know, any last comments that both of you may want to make concerning marriage and relationships?
Yeah, I think, just to piggyback off what you were saying, especially from the man's perspective, you put a face to something that I do with Dee. And Dee, here's how Dee helped me. She would text me and say, "Hey, I just need you to listen." Whether I agree or not, she'd text me, and I just listen. Because you know what, most men, once she starts saying something, you know, look, babe, we're gonna fix that problem, because if that problem lingers, it's gonna start to affect us. And so you said that well, that we typically need to know how to validate what they are going through. That is great. And that's stuff that we didn't know early on in the marriage relationship. I didn't. She come in with a problem, either you're gonna get it fixed or move on. No, just listen, give her that ear, and man, she goes off into the tulips and into the flowers just as happy she could be, because she was able to get it off her chest. And so.
I think for me, you said it well about the peace. You know, we're at a place in our marriage now that we just don't allow people or circumstances to disrupt our peace. And if it does for a moment, we know how to get back, you know, even with boundaries or different things. And also, one of the things we even tell our children, don't let someone else disrupt your character. You know, sometimes, you know, I can come in the house and be upset about something, and it's up to Ken to, sometimes he brings me back to that place of peace, you know, and that's another reason why it's good, you know, to have a healthy marriage. You know, you don't want someone to disrupt, you know, your safe haven, your environment.
Wow, you guys are so valuable and so awesome. I love it. So how can people connect with you guys? Because I want people to be able to get access to what I've been able to get access to for so many years.
Gotcha. Right now, you know, our email address is paceforgrace@gmail.com. And we also have a Facebook page called A Grace to Grow. And we are in the midst of our website redesign. So that should be coming out soon.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, thank you guys so much for being a part of Code Freedom. And I know a lot of relationships are going to be blessed as a result of it. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.